Hello friends, Steve Stockton here with you. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about People Found Alive in the Wild, Volume 2. Join me. Let's take a walk and see. Now, in an ever more technological world, people are constantly searching for ways to disconnect and recharge. Now, more than ever, young people are ditching their phones and computers for backpacks and tents. But not every forest is built for exploring. Sometimes, for whatever reason, these hikers can become lost and trapped in a race against time for survival. Here are 5 stories where the hikers fortunately won that race. Number 1. Scott Hearn. July 4th, 2024. 48-year-old Scott Hearn spent the day with his family at their home in Ohio, celebrating Independence Day. As the barbecue smoked and people helped themselves to a plate, Scott spoke about the journey he was about to make to the Daniel Boone National Forest in eastern Kentucky, a place I've been many times. Scott was an avid hiker and outdoorsman, and his sporadic trips were nothing new to his family. He told his parents he planned to visit the park's main attraction, the Red River Gorge. The Daniel Boone National Forest covers over 708,000 acres and has 600 miles of beautiful trails to follow. The park also boasts over 250 recreation sites for families and casual hikers to pitch up at and covers 21 counties in eastern Kentucky. This vast scenery, paired with recreational areas, makes it the perfect spot for casual and avid hikers alike to start their journey, and that's exactly what Scott planned to do. Reports indicate that Scott entered the National Boone National Forest on July 4, 2024, with the intention of being gone for less than 48 hours. When Scott's family failed to hear back from him on July 5th, they figured he was still out hiking and would be back soon. When July 6th came without any contact, Scott's family knew something was very wrong. That morning, Scott's family contacted the Ironton Police Department to report him missing. Scott had now been gone for 2 days, and his odds of survival were becoming slimmer by the hour. Both the Ironton Police Department and Wolfe County Search and Rescue were deployed to look for Scott. As the days dragged on, Scott's family asked for prayers and were kept in frequent contact with the police, although no news ever came. Just as things were looking grim, a breakthrough was made. On July 13th, 9 days after Scott had last been seen, his car was found abandoned at the head of Tower Rock Trail. Luckily enough, though, Scott had left behind his diary, in which he wrote exact locations of where he hoped to visit. His entries included waterfalls, most notably the Bells Falls, which sits near Highway 175. After exhausting all the other sites, search and rescue crews doubled back on Bells Falls. Scott had noted in his diary sometime around July 5th that he had already visited Bells Falls. With this, the Wolfe County Search and Rescue amped up for another day of searching on July 20th, 2024. By this point, Scott had been missing for 14 days. That's a full 2 weeks without food or water, and investigators believed they were now on a search and recovery mission. When investigators arrived at Bells Falls and ventured slightly off the trail, they discovered a major clue: footprints and an imprint from a walking stick. According to Eric Wolterman of the Wolfe County Search and Rescue, as they were examining the footprint, they heard a yelp coming from above them. Rescuers moved up the steep embankment into the tree line and found a man clinging to a rock shelter. It was Scott Hearn. Due to the ruggedness of the terrain, Scott had to be retrieved via a hoist. Scott told rescuers he'd been sleeping in a rock shelter against a cliff and had somehow survived without food or water for 12 of those 14 long days. He also explained he'd gotten lost looking for another waterfall in the area. Shortly after being rescued, Scott was transported to a local hospital where he was reunited with his thankful family. Now, Scott was in bad condition, and according to reports, he was unable to walk as his feet were so swollen. Scott then spent a few days in the hospital recovering, receiving fluids and nutrition to build him back up. Eric Wolterman gave further insight to USA Today about the rescue, stating that Scott asked him for a hug upon rescue and thanked both him and the team profusely for their efforts. Scott Hearn was then returned home to continue his recovery, surrounded by friends and family. While Scott has not made a statement, he and his family have extended their unending gratitude to all those who were involved in bringing him home. Number 2, Christian Ramirez. While Christian Ramirez was just 4 years old at the time, he already has a tale of survival to tell. On June 20th of 2024, Christian and his family were vacationing at the Rancheria campground in the Sierra National Forest near Huntington Lake in the Kaiser Wilderness in California. According to the Sierra National Park, the Rancheria campground is tucked under a canopy of dense fir and pine trees and is a perfect place for families to experience the outdoors. The campground offers a lot of space and opportunities for activities, but for little 4-year-old Christian, the canopy of trees was the main attraction. As the family were getting ready to leave, Christian found other children at the campground and joined in their games. According to Christian's father, Renato Ramirez, quote, "They're playing tag or keep away or whatever the game was. We were packing up the truck, getting ready to leave. At one point, we see these kids run over, and Christian's not with them." End quote. As soon as the Ramirez family realized Christian wasn't with the pack, panic began to set in. The children who Christian was playing with said he had run off into the forest as part of their game and never reemerged. At around 11 a.m., the Ramirez family contacted the Fresno County Sheriff's Office to report their son missing. Within minutes, an entire team had descended on the Sierra National Park. Over 50 people from different authorities joined in the search for Christian, and as night fell, the panic intensified. Despite the conditions and terrain, the search continued through the night, but without any result. It's difficult enough for an unequipped and unprepared adult to spend the night stranded in the wilderness, never mind a small child. The Ramirez family remained at their campsite, hopeful that Christian would return. At 8 a.m. the following morning, July 21st, 2024, the Ramirez received the news they had been desperately waiting for. Christian had been found alive and well, just a quarter mile from where he was last seen. According to the Tulare County Search and Rescue, Christian was found huddled underneath a large tree. Officials believe Christian had likely hunkered down there when night fell, waiting for someone to rescue him. They also added that the area where he was found was marred with difficult terrain and dangerous wildlife. Thankfully, Christian had not sustained any injuries and was just hungry and slightly exhausted. After being reunited with his parents, Christian was given a sandwich and was looked over by paramedics. Renato Ramirez told People.com following his son's incredible rescue, quote, "We're trying to get him to sleep and rest and trying to keep him home so that he can get a little rest for the next couple of days. For him to be able to hug us back, it was really the best thing I could have ever imagined." End quote. Number 3, Pamela Helmstadder. 72-year-old Pamela Helmstadder and her husband, 82-year-old John Helmstadder, had spent many years together, including 22 years of their marriage in Alexander, Maine. Pamela and John were described as a kind and loving couple who were glad to have a safe retreat in their golden years. With their children gone, Pamela and John put all their love into their dogs, 2 Labrador Retrievers. Throughout their time in Alexander, Maine, the couple had enjoyed hundreds of walks in the woods behind their home with their dogs. October 13, 2024, was due to be one of these such walks, but minutes into their leisurely stroll, the worst would happen. According to Pamela, the sole survivor, their walk started out as normal, but at some point in the journey, they had ventured away from the trails. The pair quickly became disoriented, and to make matters worse, John had taken a fall and was unable to get up. Neither of the two had brought their phones with them, and Pamela told John to hold tight while she went to get help. But Pamela had become so disoriented by the myriad of trails and trees that she too got lost. Night quickly fell, and Pamela's only companion was her Labrador, Lucy. On October 14, 2024, the Maine game wardens and local police department were alerted to their disappearance by their neighbors. The neighbors later commented that one of the Helmstadder's dogs had returned to the home and was loose. This was extremely out of the ordinary for the couple, and when several knocks at the door went unanswered, the neighbors panicked. The search for John and Pamela kicked off shortly thereafter, but no sign of the two was found within the vital first 24 hours. Temperatures plummeted at night, and investigators knew Pamela and John would not have been dressed suitably. Maine game wardens continued their search, with each day coming up empty. Finally, on Thursday, October 17th, the Maine game wardens and local law enforcement found Pamela and John. Pamela's beloved dog, Lucy, was laid on her chest as rescuers approached and was very protective of her. Unfortunately, John Helmstadder had not survived the ordeal, and the exact reason and date of his passing has not been published. Pamela, meanwhile, had hunkered down just a few hundred feet from her husband's body, and investigators believe that her dog Lucy was the key to keeping her warm throughout the 4-night ordeal. Pamela was taken to a nearby hospital where she was treated for her injuries, with police claiming she was in a state of severe hypothermia when she was found. Temperatures from October 13th and 17th reached a low of just below freezing, and had she not been rescued when she did, it may have been too late for her as well. In an interview with ABC News, Pamela said, quote, "It's a lot of sadness and grief. I told him, I'll come back for you as soon as I find out where we are. I started eating peat moss. I thought maybe it would keep me alive," end quote. The Maine game wardens confirmed the pair were found just a mile from their home, and that hours of confusion and roaming in freezing temperatures had exhausted Pamela to a point where she could no longer continue searching for help. Pamela and her family are still in a mourning period for John. The pair shared 31 years of marriage, with Pamela adding, quote, "He was loving and we had a good life together," end quote. We send our thoughts, prayers, and best wishes to the Helmstadder family during this difficult time. As for Lucy, the lucky Labrador, we hope she gets some extra treats and cuddles for saving Pamela's life. Number 4, Faye Manners and Michelle Dvorak. 37-year-old Faye Manners lived life to the extreme, and in true British fashion, never turned down a good challenge. In her 30s, Faye had moved from her home in Bedford, England, to the Alps to pursue her dream of climbing. According to the Daily Mail, Faye had also gained status as a professional alpinist, having outdoorsy companies such as North Face as her sponsors. 31-year-old Michelle Dvorak from the U.S. was also a passionate outdoors person and loved climbing huge snowy mountains like her friend Faye. When not in the Alps or tackling other staggering summits, Michelle worked as a teaching assistant at the University of Washington. The pair met during their respective time in the Alps and became exceptionally close. In September of 2024, they, along with a group of mountaineers, decided to try and summit Chalkamba 3 in the Garhwal Himalaya, India. Chalkamba 3 is part of the Gangotri Group Mountains, and it is a peak that has never before been reached. In 2002, a French crew tried to summit the 5,230-foot peak, but failed to do so. Since then, a smattering of other teams have tried to reach such heights, but all have failed. Faye Manners and Michelle Dvorak hope to break the curse and be the first to reach the peak, cementing them in the history books. On September 15, 2024, Faye and Michelle obtained their permit and traveled to the famed peak from Delhi. The grand expedition began on September 27th when Faye and Michelle left their base camp, climbing through the Sadapanth Glacier. According to a report by the Explorer's Web, the terrain at the glacier was steep and complex, and only got more difficult from there. The pair had to fight through ice, granite, and crevassed terrain to make it to the peak. On October 2nd, the pair reported to their group at base camp that they had made it to around 2,097 feet, and despite the intense terrain, they were doing well. But that afternoon, a freak accident would change the course of the climb. According to Faye and Michelle, a large falling rock cut the rope of their haul bag, which contained their stoves, food, tent, lamps, and axes. As they watched their equipment fall into a cavern below, they knew they were in trouble. Their bag contained everything they needed to both ascend and descend. Without a tent, the pair would surely freeze overnight, and without ice axes, they were stuck. Sometime that afternoon, Faye and Michelle sent an SOS to their group, hoping and praying they would reach them in time. The pair told the BBC that while they waited for help on a ledge, it began to snow, and the two had to huddle into one sleeping bag to keep warm. In a scene straight from a horror film, Faye explained that she saw helicopters whirring past them on several occasions, but without a headlamp to alert them, they simply flew straight past. As October crept in, the weather began to worsen, throwing harsh winds and snow their way. Faye and Michelle decided that they had to try and descend slowly if they had any chance of survival. With minimal equipment, the pair took turns rappelling down the mountainside slowly, hoping to bump into another group. Luckily for the duo, Faye knew a group of French climbers who were in the area attempting the very same summit. Day by day, the two made small gains but felt hopeless as the rescue helicopters flew past them. Faye told the BBC that she could feel the hypothermia and fatigue kicking in and thought she was going to die out on the mountainside. Thankfully, both Faye Manners and Michelle Dvorak managed to reach 1,738 feet, where there was another group of hikers. Shortly thereafter, Faye and Michelle were airlifted by the Indian Air Force from the mountain to the town of Josemath. The pair were taken to a hospital, and it appears neither woman has suffered any long-term injuries after the accident. Following her incredible rescue, Faye Manners told the BBC, quote, "We did very well to survive and retreat in the way we did. I feel exhausted, mentally destroyed, and overtired to the point I can't sleep." End quote. Both women have since flown to their respective homes to recover with their loved ones. At number 5, Paul Conway. Inverry is one of Scotland's most remote communities, and a prize is offered by the Old Forge pub to anyone brave enough to traverse what is called Scotland's last great wilderness. 67-year-old Paul Conway was up for that challenge and was especially excited about the free pint he was about to receive from the remote pub. In his youth, Paul served in the British Army's 1st Parachute Regiment and was proud of his achievements. Even as the years crept up on him, he believed he had the same abilities he did in his 20s, although his family may not agree with that now. In early September 2024, Paul left his home in Newcastle, England, to embark on what should have been a 3-day journey. For those wanting to get a free pint at the Old Forge, they must first walk from Glenfinnan to Inverry. The landscape can be difficult in places, with Inverry sitting close to Loch Nevis. As previously discussed, the journey should only take 3 days, so when Paul failed to reach the pub, his family raised the alarm. Police in Scotland and English police collaborated to bring Paul home, and during their search, they discovered Paul had signed in at a few bothies along the way. Bothies are free sleeping areas that comprise mostly pubs and community centers for those trekking in the Scottish Highlands. The Lochaber Mountain Rescue Team and the RAF and HMS Coast Guard joined in the search for Paul Conway. Back home, Paul's family called for more media attention on his case and asked for anyone in the area to be on the lookout. As the days dragged on, the rate of survival for Paul was becoming smaller and smaller. The weather in Scotland and England is not renowned for being nice, with rain and strong winds peppering the highlands. October's weather was somewhat mild in the lowlands, but once the sun goes down, the temperature can jump well below zero, especially in boggy areas such as Loch Nevis. Thankfully, Paul's family didn't need to wait too long for answers, and on Tuesday, October 17, 2024, the announcement of his rescue hit the news. According to the Lochaber Mountain Rescue Team, they found Paul wandering in a remote area in Loch Morar, several miles from Loch Nevis. At his rescue, Paul was a little worse for the wear, but was in stable condition. He was taken to a hospital as a precautionary measure. Paul's son, Chris Conway, told the Independent, quote, "My dad was due to walk from Glenfinnan Viaduct to Inverry for a free pint in the Forge, which is the most remote pub in the UK. The Dafty is 67, but still thinks he's 21 and can do anything. He can." End quote. William O'Neill, the manager of the Old Forge, commented on the ordeal, stating he was grateful to all involved for safely bringing Paul home. He also added, We will welcome him with open arms and a free pint if he comes in safely next time. We like to think our pub is worth the trip. Well, we hope Paul gets his free pints whenever he goes from now on. This story is the most British thing I've ever heard. Nothing can motivate a man like the promise of a free pint. Well, friends, there you have it. What do you think of these amazing wilderness survival cases? As always, I look forward to your comments, but keep it friendly and respectful. As for me, I'll see you a little further on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time. And please, tell your animals I said hi.